Hey beautiful people, welcome back to Ready Westo. So in this episode we're going to get all of this stuff in the car. Before we get stuck into the next installation of parts, what I wanted to do is just give you guys a quick update on progress since the last video. And just to remind you guys, please like and subscribe, help support the channel so I can keep making these videos for you. So since the last video, I have now finally mounted the radiator. So that's nice and secure in place. Use these sort of steel L brackets here, one on either side, there and there, and that's allowed me to secure this right quite nicely. So I did have to improvise with the bolts and so on to get this to be tight, so it doesn't look crazy perfect, but it does the job. It holds it really well. And then I've secured it at the bottom as well with these, so it essentially there's a bit of gap in between there, so the actual silicone hose is not rubbing on the body and it won't damage that over time. So that's really nice. The only thing I can say is this is really difficult to get off at the moment just because of the clearance there. It's quite hard to get this off, so what I might need to do is I might need to bend that very slightly just to allow the cap to come off a little bit easier. I don't want to cut it, so I might just bend it and just see if that gives me enough clearance to get that cap off easily enough. If I take it to the front, what I had to do was I didn't have to drill this side. There was already a hole here. Now I don't know what was there originally for the car before. Maybe perhaps the radiator was mounted there before on the old car, but essentially I didn't have to drill this one, so I used the hole that was already existing. And on this side I had to drill a hole here, so I've drilled one there just to mount that bracket, and then this is sort of a securing screw as well, so it doesn't shift, so the L bracket stays straight on there. But now that's really good, and it's given us enough space here where I can play around with that oil cooler for the transmission that we're going to look at installing today. But yeah, really good. Another thing that's taken place since the last video is the alternator is finally in. So it took me a while to get these parts from America. So I was waiting for this sort of turnbuckle here that sort of holds this in place, and it comes with all these sort of shims. So again, this took a little bit of improvising. So this is a bracket that I had from before from a different kit. That is the bracket that sort of hoists the engine out. Just turned the other way to use for this. Then the new kit came with a long enough screw that I can use to sort of secure this in place, and then using the turnbuckle to alter the swing, and now we have a good amount of play in the belt, but it's secure enough and the alternator is in business. So again, that's now running, so we have pretty much now a fully functioning engine, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure that the belt's going to need a little bit of adjustment in there to get it right, because obviously I put it in, it's not the original bracket, so we're going to have to find the right sweet spot for that belt. But for the time being, it runs, it works. I can see on the voltmeter that it is doing its job by charging. What I do need to do is I do need to put the mega fuse in between the alternator and the return for the charging circuit, obviously, because that's what that will do is regulate the amount of current going through there, just to prevent and protect the system. Okay, so on to what we're going to do today. So today we're going to get the electric fan installed, because obviously we did the wiring previously, so it's all in there ready to go. We just need to get that mounted in with the mounting kit in the right place, and then put the ground in, plug that in to the bullet connector, and that guy is then ready to go now, now that the radiator is secured in its fixed position. We also had the dipstick here, so now the reason why, I'll explain the reason for this, right, is every time I run the engine now, it basically spews out automatic transmission fluid onto the floor. And that is because, one, the dipstick is not installed, because obviously on these trucks and sort of other Fords as well, the gearbox has a dipstick of its own in addition to the engine. That's not plugged in, so what's happening now is it's just spewing out the ATF from that hole. It's also supposed to have an oil cooler to the transmission, which is this fella here, and obviously those ports are also open, so it's just dumping out ATF all over the place. So to get it to idle safely and allow me to tune the carb, etc., I need to get this sorted out so I can then do that and we don't have any more fluids leaking out of this car. So just going to explain some of the parts. I'll come on to the dipstick in a moment, but let me just explain for the oil cooler. So this is the oil cooler that came with the car. And it should do the job. It does look a little bit battered, but it doesn't actually leak from what I can see. I have tested it and it doesn't actually leak. So to show you, previously this was mounted here on the front of the actual bumper on the outside. So that explains why it's a little bit battered, to be honest, as well. But it was sort of mounted something like that on the outside and then drill through the bumper there as well. I'm not too keen on that, to be honest. I want to put it here or behind somewhere here on the radiator, just so then what happens is the electric fan will then help pull, sorry for the wind noise there, just a little bit windy today, but essentially that the electric fan will help pull air through that oil cooler to help make more efficient cooling rather than relying on it being here. Because if we're in standstill traffic, absolutely nothing is being pulled through the oil cooler. The oil cooler is just going to generate heat essentially. I also don't like the fact that the license plate off center. I kind of like it symmetrical in the middle. So again, I will replace the bumper over time, but for now I think let's get the oil cooler in a more efficient spot than where it was originally. So what we need to do is I had to buy a couple of things to make this work. So I had to buy this fitting here, which is an 10 AN to a 6 AN, or AN6, AN10, whichever way you want to call it, whichever way around. But essentially that goes onto here, and then that allows me to then put on these AN6 fittings that we had from the previous fuel line kit as well, because I had loads of spares, so I'm going to make use of those really, because it goes with the color scheme of the car and continues the color scheme. But yeah, essentially 2 of these for this, and then what we also have is we have these. Now these should go into the gearbox, and they should be the right size for this gearbox to allow those inlet and outlet for the cooling system on that. And then obviously we've got some black braided line as well for AN6 as well. So that just allows me to then connect everything up in the way that we want it to work. So I've used black for the oil transmission, just so we know it's very much separated from the fuel lines as well, so we just know exactly what it is. And behind the grille as well, it might look a little bit nicer than getting sort of dirty with the silver. So that is the oil system that we're going to come on to. Okay, so just to show you here, forgive the angle, it's a little bit hard under the car here now because I've got the exhaust in place as well. This is a dipstick hole. That is the outlet for the oil from the gearbox as well to the cooler. So we need to put one of those fittings in here. Dipstick needs to go in here, and then at the back there is another one just there. I'm going to mark that on the screen for you guys, and that one is the inlet, so it's the return for the oil to the gearbox from there, from the cooler, sorry. So yeah, so it's these 3 that we're after from underneath the car, and then the rest of the work is pretty much done from the front end of the car as well. While I'm under the car as well, just to show you, so this is the makeshift sort of exhaust I've put in there. So it's just like a bendy flex tube that goes into the manifold from there. So it's a bit ugly, not sealed properly, but essentially it does a job now to quieten it down a little bit, just to allow me to tune it. Same on the other side as well. There's another flex in there up to the exhaust manifold, and that just, yeah, like I said, it just helps direct the exhaust gases through the exhaust rather than deafening me at the engine level. I mean, not gonna lie, I love the sound, but hey, after a long period of time my ears do ring. So yeah, really nice to have this in place now. We will get that welded properly over time. But yeah, let's crack on with the dipstick first, or actually I might get that fitting in first, and then it allows me to measure room for the dipstick as well. So I had to remove the actual fitting from the gearbox. It looks like I had a little bit of an adapter on mine, so I was wondering why I just couldn't get that new fitting to thread in to this, because I think this is like a reducer for a smaller size for whatever reason. So yeah, I was just struggling, and I just thought, okay, let me just see if I can get this out. So yeah, 19 mil will take this out. Maybe different on yours if you've got a different reducer, but yeah, that end here now looks to be the same as the one on the new fitting, so that'll be in there. So yeah, if you're struggling to get yours to thread through, don't try and force it, just have a look. You might have these little reducers on it. Okay, so we are almost ready to fit the oil cooler now and the electric fan. So that's the AN6 fitting there, and then the other one just there at the back, all connected with a 90 degree on both of these. I've done a 90 degree, and then I've just threaded the pipes through. So obviously I need to make a holder for it, like a harness to hold them out away from the exhaust and away from anything dangerous, and just secure them into place. But I'll do that once I've been able to make a bracket maybe to this bolt here for just on the starter, or something different if there's another hole I can find. I'll make something just to keep these out of the way. And then if I come to the front, fed those through, so they all just trunked through the car there, as you can see, all the way around to the front. So there was a little cutout in here someone's previously made, I think, when the cooler was here, but I haven't used this one. I've used this one because I'm going to put the I'm going to sink these behind this bar here. So essentially the cooler is going to go like that, upside down into there. What I did do, just a note for you guys, obviously this oil cooler was used, so what I did was I ran a couple of times, I ran through some transmission fluid, automatic transmission fluid through here a few times until it flushed it out, and it just clean oil was coming out through there. Obviously you do not want any kind of other oil getting into your gearbox because it may damage your gearbox. So I'd recommend, if you're going to use an older one that you had before, definitely give it a flush to do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get all the fittings for the fan, put the fan in first, and then we can offer this guy up, you know, into place. Let's give it a crack. Okay, and that's the cooler fitted and the fan fitted as well. So you can see there's a gap in there between the two, so they don't meet. There's a good amount of clearance in there between the two, which is perfect. So I just got to do the connect the cables for the fan, and that's pretty much it. So just put a nut on the ground there and then connect up the red one there, which is for the fan, and everything is done. So I'm just going to pause quickly. I'm going to put the grill back on just so you guys can see what it's going to look like when the grill is on. Excuse the wobbly bumper there, just laid it on the brackets, but as you can see, that's what it's going to look like when the grill is on. So now it looks very neat. The cooler is behind there, you can see it when you look through, but it's not so prominent hanging off the bumper as it was before. So I'm going to connect up the fan, power and the ground quickly, and then we will give it a quick test and see that it's pulling air through the through the actual cooler and the radiator as well. Alright, let's final piece of the puzzle now. Let's talk dipstick. So just taking it back now, this obviously was the original dipstick for the C6, so that part would have been attached to there. What I've done is I've measured and I've cut a piece here. Now this is just a good amount of just like length for underneath the car. That will then slot into the gearbox, and then the cap will go onto there. What I then had to do was obviously snip that off. So obviously to cut this off, just use a hacksaw. To cut this part off, I've used the wire cutter there, and or cable cutter, whichever way you want to call it, and then cut that off and then slid that off the top here. So that part was originally here, so I've cut it and then I've just pulled it off, and then I've slid it on the bottom end. I've slid it through that little gap there. I've slid it all the way through and then measured with this on in place. Again, I've measured the distance here, so making sure that you have about 3 inches at the bottom here, which was about, or just shy of 3 inches was the right amount of distance for the dipstick itself. Now, what we need to do is figure out how to get this to be secure. Now, there is enough space underneath the car. I think between the AN fitting and where the dipstick will go, there is enough space for us to make the curl for the handle. Now, what that means is I'm going to have to try and find something to punch this in so it grips the rod, because otherwise when you pull it, the rod will just come out through the cap itself. The cap will stay attached to this, and it will just pull it out through there until it gets stuck around about here, which is not ideal. So I'm going to try and punch this in. If we can't punch it, what I'm going to do is cut it to about, say, the end of the wen, and then bend it over and crimp it here so it touches, and then that way it grips onto the housing. So when you pull it up, it's sort of like a hook, and it'll pull up when it goes in and out. So it'll work either way. We just then use this as a handle to pull it out, as opposed to using the actual sort of hook handle like this on there. So let's give it a shot, see what we can do. Okay, so subject to me crimping it with all my might, it grips it tighter, but it's not good enough. And obviously if it's straight like that, I just fear that it's gonna sort of fall out from there. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go for a cut off the wen and then bend over and try that. Okay, so that's it, sort of bent over now and in place, and what I've done is I've just applied a little bit of glue on it, so I'm just waiting for the glue to dry before I stick it onto the car, and I can show you how it'll work. But yeah, essentially just bent it over like that. Seems to be quite secure now, So yeah, just wait for the glue and then we are good. Okay, and just like that, the dipstick is in. So it actually, it's easier if you take the cap off first and then you push the actual dipstick tube down with your fingers, because it needs to click into place to be secure, and then you can put the stem on. So again, if you know, you're only going to do this once a year, so it isn't, you know, it's not as easy as doing it from the top, but you can still get it out. So essentially, if you just push it out, sorry, with the hands, you know, it comes out through the gap. So you just got to fish it a little bit, and you'll be able to check the oil from there. So yeah, like I said, it does the job, and now hopefully no more leaks. So we are nearly there. Now we've got the engine working, gearbox probably just needs a top up of oil. Work our way back. We do need to get a vacuum tube for this fella here to the engine as well. I think it's a vacuum modulator it's called. We need to get a vacuum tube, and then we work our way to the prop shaft. So we are nearly there. We are getting closer and closer to the back end. Once we get to the back end, we will have this thing driving. So thanks guys. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, support the channel, and watch the space for more Zodiac build videos.